I stood silently. They lowered Grandpa Leo's casket. The rain had stopped. The air felt heavy, like my chest. My name is Alara Vance. Today, I buried the last person who truly loved me. I glanced at my mother, Serafina. She dabbed at her dry eyes. Beside her stood her husband, Richard, and his college-aged kids, Bianca and Trent. They looked somber and black, but I knew better. None visited Grandpa Leo in the hospital. I was the one there, holding his hand. Cancer took him slowly. "Alara," Mom called after the service, "thanks for everything. James would have liked it." Before I could answer, a man in a charcoal suit approached. "Miss Vance, I'm Mr. Caldwell, your grandfather's lawyer. I need to discuss his will." Mom's ears perked up. "When will this happen?" she asked, barely hiding her interest. "Now, if it's convenient," Mr. Caldwell replied, looking at me. "That's fine," I said. 20 minutes later, we were in Grandpa Leo's big living room. "Let's proceed," Mr. Caldwell said, sensing the tension. He sat at the dining table, taking out papers. "I'll read the last will of Leo Edward Vance." As he read, I watched Mom. She leaned forward, eyes on the papers. Bianca glanced around, like she was listing items. "To my beloved granddaughter, Alara Elizabeth Vance," Mr. Caldwell continued, "I leave my entire estate. This includes my home at 21 Oakwood Lane, my cabin at Blue Lake, and all financial assets, about $900,000. The room was silent. I wasn't surprised. Grandpa had always said I'd inherit everything, but their faces were priceless. Bianca's mouth dropped open. Mom's smile froze. Additionally, Mr. Caldwell said, "To Serafina Vance, I leave my antique silver tea set, which she always admired." Mom straightened. "The tea set? That's all?" Mr. Caldwell nodded. "That's correct." "Old fool," she muttered. Anger surged. "That set is worth thousands," I said coldly. "He didn't owe you anything, Mr. Caldwell finished quickly. He explained how the properties and money would transfer. Bianca glared at me. Trent looked bored, but disappointed. After he left, Mom turned to me. "Alara, you should share some of this. Your father would want his family taken care of." My father had been dead for 15 years. Grandpa Leo was my family, I replied evenly. "My only real family since Dad died." "That's not fair," Bianca snapped. "You don't deserve all this. What makes you so special? You're not even that smart or pretty or talented. You've never done anything." I looked at Mom, waiting for her to defend me. She said nothing. Her silence spoke volumes. "Well, Bianca," I said calmly, "since you're so smart, beautiful, and talented, you'll have no problem making your own fortune. Now, I'd like you all to leave my house." They left, grumbling and glaring. I locked the door and leaned against it. Finally, I let the tears fall. After a few minutes, I wiped my eyes and went to Grandpa's office. I needed to sort his papers and figure out my new life. I sat at his desk. Memories flooded back. After Dad died when I was 12, everything changed. Mom met Richard a year later. She focused on her new family. When they married and Richard moved in with his kids, I became an afterthought. Bianca and Trent were spoiled. Bianca, a year younger, would steal my things and lie. She'd ruin my homework and blame our dog. Trent would make rude comments when no adults were around. Mom was too busy being the perfect wife and stepmother to notice. Grandpa Leo became my safe place. I'd stay at his house whenever I could, weekends, breaks, sometimes weeknights, if I had a lot of homework. No one at home seemed to care or notice. When I graduated high school, Grandpa paid for my college in another state. Those 4 years were the best of my life. After college, I moved back home, but rented my own place. I visited Grandpa often. I only saw Mom a few times, usually at the store or gas station. She even forgot my birthday last year. Now Grandpa was gone. I was alone. But I had a home as home, and enough money to decide what I wanted to do next. As I sorted his papers, I promised to honor his memory by making the most of what he'd given me. Several weeks drifted by after the burial. I moved from my rented place into Grandpa Leo's house. One Saturday morning, while sorting through his old books, the doorbell chimed. I wasn't expecting anyone. Cautiously, I peeked through the peephole. Mom stood on the porch with Bianca. They wore bright smiles, but their eyes didn't match. I opened the door. "Mom? Bianca? What are you doing here?" Alara, sweetie, Mom stepped forward, hugging me before I could react. I came to get the silver set Leo left me. I thought we could catch up too. I stepped aside. It's in the kitchen cabinet. Same place as always. Mom went straight to the kitchen. Bianca lingered in the living room, eyes scanning everything, like she was taking inventory. God, this place is depressing, she said, running a finger along the bookshelf. It's like a museum for old people. If this were my house, I'd gut it. New furniture, new paint, maybe knock down some walls. Well, it's not your house, I replied calmly. I like it this way. Bianca rolled her eyes. Whatever. You always had weird taste. I bit my tongue, not wanting to show I was upset. Instead, I went to the kitchen to check on Mom. She carefully wrapped each piece of the silver in newspaper. When she finished, we stood awkwardly in the entryway. I thought they'd leave, but Mom surprised me. Ilara, I've been thinking, she said. We should try to rebuild our relationship. You don't have any close family left now that Leo is gone. I almost laughed at her sudden interest in my life. That's true, I said, not committing. Why don't you come over for dinner next Saturday? She asked. I'll make all your favorites, chicken parmesan, garlic mashed potatoes, and that chocolate cake you loved as a kid. I almost refused, but something stopped me. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe a small part of me still wanted the mother I'd lost. Okay, I said finally. What time? Mom's smile widened. 6. Richard and Trent will be there too, a proper family dinner. After they left, I sat on the porch swing. I tried to figure out what had just happened. Mom hadn't cared about my life for years. Now suddenly she wanted family dinners? The timing felt suspicious, right after I'd inherited a lot of money. But maybe, just maybe, losing Grandpa had made her realize family was important. The week passed quickly. Before I knew it, Saturday arrived. I dressed casually in jeans and a sweater. I didn't want to look like I was trying too hard. At 6 sharp, I pulled into the driveway of my childhood home. The house looked smaller than I remembered. I hesitated before ringing the bell. Memories washed over me. This was where I'd grown up, where I'd played with Dad, where I'd felt safe and loved until I didn't anymore. Richard answered the door. Alara, he said with a nod, his usual greeting. He'd never bothered with hugs or handshakes. Inside, Mom bustled around the dining room, setting the table with the silver set. Trent sat on the couch, playing a game, barely acknowledging me. Alara, Mom called. You're right on time. Dinner's almost ready. Can I help with anything? I offered. No need. I've got it all under control. Make yourself at home. Make yourself at home. The irony wasn't lost on me. This had been my home once. Now, I felt like a stranger. I decided to wander around while Mom finished in the kitchen. The living room was mostly the same, but the family photos showed more of Richard's kids than me. I went upstairs to the second floor, running my hand along the banister. Dad had once measured my height there with pencil marks. Looking for something? Bianca's voice came from behind me. Just taking a walk down memory lane, I replied. She followed me upstairs. I turned your old room into my dressing room, she said with a laugh. You won't need it anymore, right? I said nothing, just kept walking until I reached my old room. The door was open. It had been transformed. My pale blue walls were now pink. Where my bed had been, there were clothing racks filled with designer clothes. My desk was gone, replaced by a vanity table covered in makeup. I headed back downstairs, planning to offer help in the kitchen, despite Mom's refusal. As I approached, I heard glasses clinking. I peeked around the corner. Mom stood at the counter, her back to me. She poured something from a small bottle into a mug. Quickly, she tucked the bottle into her pocket when she heard me. Alara, she said, spinning around. I was just making your tea. She still remembered how I liked it. You still like it with honey, right? Right, I said, my mind racing. What had she put in that mug? I went to the dining room where everyone was gathering. Mom appeared a moment later, carrying a tray with drinks. She handed me the mug I'd seen her with. Your favorite tea, she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I forced a smile back. Thanks, Mom. As everyone settled in and began passing dishes, I noticed Bianca had an identical mug to mine. While Mom was busy serving Richard, I casually switched our mugs. Everything looks delicious, I said, taking a small sip from my new mug. I watched Mom. Her eyes darted to the mug in front of Bianca, then back to me every few seconds. So, Alara, Richard said, breaking the silence. What are your plans for that big house? Seems like a lot of space for one person. I'm not sure yet, I replied. For now, I'm just getting used to living there. The conversation continued, but I only half listened. I was too busy watching Mom's growing nervousness. I decided to stay longer than planned. I needed to know what was happening, what Mom had tried to do to me. Dinner dragged on uncomfortably. Mom hinted I should leave, but I pretended not to understand her words. An hour after we finished eating, Bianca suddenly stopped talking. She was telling a story about her college professor. Her face turned pale, and she swayed in her chair. I don't feel so good, she mumbled, pressing her hand to her forehead. Bianca slumped forward. Her head hit the table with a thud. She'd fainted. Everyone jumped up in panic. Richard rushed to his daughter's side. Trent stood frozen, staring at his sister with wide eyes. What's happening? Bianca! Mom shrieked, shaking Bianca's shoulder. Wake up! Richard checked her pulse. Serafina, call an ambulance. Mom fumbled for her phone, hands shaking. As she dialed, I cleared my throat. I think I should mention something, I said calmly. I accidentally switched mugs with Bianca earlier. I noticed they were identical, and I wasn't paying attention. Maybe she drank something that didn't agree with her. Mom's eyes snapped to the empty mug in front of Bianca, then back to me. No, that's not. She didn't finish. Richard, call 911 now. Tell them to hurry. Her panicked reaction told me everything. I watched her pace, muttering to herself. Richard was on the phone, describing Bianca's symptoms to the dispatcher. Mom, I said quietly, what did you put in my tea? She whirled on me. Nothing. Don't be ridiculous. Then why are you so scared? What's happening to Bianca? Shut up, she screamed, her composure gone. This is your fault. You switched the drinks. I stepped away and pulled out my own phone, dialing the police. Hello, I'd like to report an attempted poisoning, I said clearly. I believe my mother tried to drug me, but my stepsister drank it instead. Within minutes, paramedics rushed into the house. As they worked on Bianca, I quietly explained what I had seen, Mom adding something to my tea, and my suspicion that she had tried to drug me. The paramedics stabilized Bianca and loaded her onto a stretcher. Her blood pressure is dangerously low, one of them told Richard. We need to get her to the hospital immediately. As they wheeled Bianca out, police cars arrived. 2 officers came inside, and I repeated my story. The senior officer, a woman with kind eyes and a firm voice, asked Mom what she had put in the drink. Mom broke down in tears. It was clonidine. I took it from Mrs. Winters when I was cleaning her house last week. She uses it for high blood pressure. I knew it would make Alara's pressure drop, make her dizzy and disoriented while driving. She could have crashed her car. Then she'd need us to help her recover. She'd have to share some of that money with us. The room fell silent. Even Richard stared at her in shock. Serafina Vance, the officer said, I'm placing you under arrest for attempted murder. Murder? Mom gasped. No, I didn't want to kill her, just hurt her a little. Drugging someone without their knowledge, especially with medication that could cause a car accident, shows intent to cause serious harm or death, the officer explained as she handcuffed Mom. As they led Mom out to the police car, she turned to look at me one last time. Alara, please, tell them I didn't mean it. I am your mother. I said nothing, watching as they put her in the back of the patrol car. Richard came to stand beside me, his face pale. I had no idea, he said quietly. I swear, Alara, I knew nothing about this. I believed him. Richard had many faults, but he wasn't violent or vindictive, just selfish and indifferent. You should go to the hospital, I told him. Bianca needs you. He nodded, grabbing his keys and Trent's arm. Are you going to be okay? I'll be fine, I said. I need to give my statement to the police, and then I'm going home. After they left, I sat down with the remaining officer and told him everything. The inheritance, Mom's sudden interest in reconnecting, what I'd seen in the kitchen, and the switched mugs. He took careful notes, asking questions about Mom's behavior and words. We'll need you to come to the station tomorrow to make a formal statement, he said. You'll likely be called to testify if this goes to trial. I nodded, suddenly exhausted. I understand. Later, as I drove back to Grandpa Leo's house, my house now reality crashed over me. My own mother had tried to hurt me, maybe even kill me, for money. The mother who once bandaged my scraped knees and read me bedtime stories had become someone capable of planning harm against her own child. I parked in the driveway but couldn't bring myself to go inside yet. Instead, I sat in the car, tears streaming down my face. Not tears of sadness, but of anger and betrayal. How had things gone so wrong? When had Mom changed so much? Eventually, I wiped my tears and went inside. The house was quiet and still, filled with Grandpa Leo's things, with memories of the man who had loved me unconditionally. I ran my hand along the banister, feeling it smooth beneath my fingers. "I miss you, Grandpa," I whispered to the empty house. "What do I do now?" The next few weeks passed in a blur of police stations, lawyers' offices, and courthouse visits. Mom was charged with attempted murder. The evidence against her was overwhelming: her confession at the scene, the clonidine found in her pocket, and the hospital's confirmation that Bianca had indeed been drugged with it. I sat through the preliminary hearing, watching Mom in her orange jumpsuit, her face pale and drawn. She kept trying to catch my eye, but I refused to look at her directly. Richard and Trent were there too, sitting on the opposite side of the courtroom. Bianca was still recovering at home. Mom's public defender tried to argue that she never intended to kill me, only cause a minor accident. But the prosecutor argued that giving someone a blood pressure medication that could cause them to lose consciousness while driving showed a reckless disregard for human life. In the end, Mom accepted a plea deal: 5 years for attempted second-degree murder, with the possibility of parole after 3 years. As they led her away, she finally caught my eye and mouthed, "I'm sorry." I turned away. Outside the courthouse, Richard approached me awkwardly. "Bianca's doing better," he said. "She wants to talk to you." She was horrified when she learned what her mother tried to do. We all were. None of us would have agreed to something like that. I agreed to visit Bianca the next day. When I arrived at their house, it felt strange knowing Mom wouldn't be there. Bianca was in the living room, looking pale but alert. "Hey," she said when I walked in. "Thanks for coming." I sat across from her. "How are you feeling?" "Better. The doctors say there won't be any permanent damage." She fidgeted with the hem of her shirt. "Look, Alara, I need to apologize. Not just for my mom, that's on her, but for how I've treated you all these years." I raised my eyebrows, not expecting this. "I was jealous," she continued. "You had this perfect relationship with your dad, and then with your grandpa. Even after your dad died, you had someone who put you first. No one ever put me first. Not even my mom." Her voice broke. "And I took it out on you. It wasn't perfect," I said softly. "Just real." We talked for nearly an hour, not about Mom or the inheritance, but about our childhoods, our misunderstandings, the family we might have been in different circumstances. It wasn't exactly a reconciliation, but it was a start. When I left, we agreed to meet for coffee sometime. I didn't know if it would actually happen, but the possibility existed now, which was more than I'd had before. 3 months after Mom's sentencing, I received a letter from the women's facility where she was held. I stared at the envelope for a long time before opening it. "Dear Alara," she wrote in her familiar, looping handwriting, "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. What I did was unforgivable. I lost myself somewhere after your father died. I was desperate to build a new life, one without the pain of remembering him. But in trying to escape that pain, I caused so much more. I pushed you away when I should have held you closer. You were all I had left of him, and I couldn't bear to see his eyes looking back at me through yours. I'm not asking you to visit, or even to write back. I just want you to know that I regret what I did with every fiber of my being. Not just the terrible thing I tried to do to you, but all of it, the years of neglect, choosing Richard and his kids over you, forgetting what it means to be a mother. I'm so sorry, Alara. I hope someday you find happiness and peace, even if I'm not part of your life. Love, Mom." I folded the letter and put it back in its envelope. Then, I placed it in a drawer in Grandpa Leo's desk. I didn't cry. I didn't feel the need to reply. Maybe someday I would, but not yet. Mom needed to sit with her choices longer, and I needed time to build my life without the shadow of her betrayal hanging over me. That's what I did. A year passed, then another. I kept Grandpa Leo's house, but redecorated some parts of it, blending his antiques with my own style. I used some of the inheritance to go back to school for a master's degree in education, something I'd always wanted to do. I made new friends, dated occasionally, and slowly built a life that felt like mine. Bianca and I did meet for coffee, and then dinner, and eventually became something like friends. Not close, but civil, and sometimes even genuinely warm with each other. Trent went off to graduate school in another state. Richard sold their house and moved to a condo downtown. We exchanged Christmas cards, but nothing more. Mom continued to write every few months. I read her letters but never replied. She wrote about her therapy sessions, about the other women in prison, about her regrets and hopes. In her most recent letter, she mentioned she was up for parole soon. She didn't ask if I would support her release, or if she could come stay with me afterward. She seemed to understand that some bridges can't be rebuilt. Yesterday, I was cleaning out some old boxes in the attic and found a photo album I hadn't seen before. It was full of pictures of Dad and me at the beach, opening Christmas presents, riding bikes in the park. In every photo, we were laughing. On the last page was a note in Grandpa Leo's handwriting for Alara. Never forget how much joy you brought to your father's life. He lives on in you. I sat there among the dusty boxes, holding that album to my chest, and finally cried. I cried for everything I had lost and found. Dad was gone, and Grandpa too. Mom was alive, but lost to me in a different way. I had inherited a house and money, but more importantly, I had inherited the capacity to love deeply and the strength to survive loss. Today, as I write this, I'm sitting on the porch swing of my grandfather's house, my house now. I'm watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. A gentle breeze rustles the leaves of the old oak tree Dad planted the year I was born. It's taller than the house now, its roots deep and strong. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if I'll ever forgive Mom, or if she'll ever truly understand the depth of her betrayal, but I do know that I'm okay. More than okay, actually. I'm at peace with who I am and where I came from. Dad and Grandpa gave me the greatest gift, the knowledge that I was loved unconditionally. That love sustains me still, a quiet strength that no one can take away, not even the mother who tried to hurt me for an inheritance I would have shared if only she'd asked. Story 2, I looked incredulously at my phone. I just received a call from my mother asking me to my parents' place for supper. We hadn't spoken in months, and I hadn't been there in a year. I'm Dana, the family's black sheep, and I'm 32 years old. That's what they believe anyhow. I was always second best as a child. Melissa was my younger sister. She was the perfect child. She had a knack of making everyone, especially our parents, adore her, and she was more attractive and charming. They weren't being mean to me. It was obvious that they liked her more. They would be too busy to attend the dancing recitals. When Melissa's turn came, they would somehow find time. My sister's mediocre grades, which earned me lectures, somehow turned into her greatest effort. With a groan, I set my phone down on the counter in my kitchen. A tiny luxury in the condo, the marble felt cold to the touch. I didn't mention it to them. Mom called now, but why? What were they seeking? All right, I whispered to myself. However, I arrived at my parents' modest suburban house a week later. I purposefully wore pants, a basic top, and little jewelry. There was nothing that would suggest I was anything other than the middle manager who was having trouble. They believed I was inhaling deeply. The doorbell rang. The door was opened by Dad. Donna, enter, enter. His greeting was sincere yet preoccupied. I could see why Melissa was presiding over the couch as soon as I entered the living room. As she made a lot of gestures and related a narrative about her workplace conflict, Mom and Dad's whole attention was on her. Her flawless grin never wavered as she stopped speaking when she noticed me. Oh, she continued in a falsely lovely voice. The prodigal daughter is back. Mom sprang to her feet. We're so happy you could make it, honey. She gave me a quick embrace before heading back to her place next to Melissa. I took a seat in the armchair across from them and observed Melissa's hardly disguised disdain as she looked over my attire. She smirked and remarked, I love the thrift store chic look. Thanks, I said plainly. Designer labels are not necessary for everyone to feel good about themselves. Dad cleared his throat. Your mother has prepared a delicious meal, Donna. In around 20 minutes, it should be ready. Before Mom said supper was ready, we engaged in uncomfortable small conversation. Around the dining table, we were seated, the same one I grew up with. Dad filled everyone's glasses with wine. Melissa started talking about her work at a marketing company right away. I felt like they were pleading with me to take on the Johnson account. She said that I was the only person capable of handling it. That's fantastic, my love. Mom smiled and went to give her a hand pat. Dad abruptly turned to face me. Donna, how about you? Still working at the same organization. What was it? Assistant manager. Before responding, I took a drink of wine. Do you still work at Berkshire Financial? Indeed. Melissa gave a snort. You've been there for what, 8 years now, Don? God, by your age, most individuals would have advanced. I mean, in the last 4 years, I've had 3 promotions. If they only knew that I had been the finance director of Berkshire for the last 3 years, I could feel my jaw tighten. That previous year, I was included in Business Weekly's 40 Under 40, and that my yearly bonus alone exceeded Melissa's entire income. However, they had never inquired, so they were unaware. Never gave a damn enough to follow my life. Rather than correcting her, I just grinned. Not everyone is as talented or driven as you are, Mel. As she gave Melissa another portion of mashed potatoes, Mom said. This was the direction of the discourse. During dinner, Melissa spoke about her forthcoming Hawaiian vacation, her envious coworkers, and her fantastic pay. In the end, my parents praised her profusely and asked follow-up questions. They never asked me any insightful questions about my life. Melissa said, I've been saving for Hawaii for months, but it's not that hard when you make good money. She gave me a cocky glance. I pushed my plate aside and remarked, that sounds fantastic. However, I should probably leave early. We'll meet tomorrow. Mom, thank you for supper. I gathered my handbag as I arose. Melissa and Dad stayed at the table as Mom escorted me to the door. As I drove back to my apartment downtown, she patted my shoulder and said, It was good to see you, honey. I couldn't get rid of the suspicion that my invitation had been sent with a hidden agenda. In any case, I was happy to be going home. Back in my roomy flat, I poured myself a good glass of wine and kicked off my shoes. Not what my folks provided, which was inexpensive. I was just getting comfortable on my balcony, overlooking the downtown skyline. I got a ping on my phone. Melissa sent a message. I hope your melancholy little existence isn't getting to you, sis. Success is not achievable for everyone, I suppose. I'll send you a postcard from Hawaii, so don't worry. After looking at the message for a while, I started chuckling. If only she were aware. I took another sip of my wine and closed the message without replying. In my opulent apartment on the 28th floor, overlooking the glittering city lights, I didn't always have such a tense relationship with my family. Before Melissa was born, I was quite young. It was different. I vaguely recall my mom reading bedtime tales and my dad throwing me into the air. But when Melissa came when I was 4, everything was different. She was the ideal child. Seldom did they cry. Her large blue eyes seemed to captivate everyone who saw her, and she was always grinning. The pattern became evident when I was 10 years old. I was recently there, and Melissa was unique. I did everything I could to please them. I volunteered on the weekends, studied until midnight, and joined every club. I served as the yearbook editor, debate team captain, and valedictorian in high school. However, my parents' chairs were vacant as I made my graduation speech and looked around for their joyful expressions. Instead, they had brought Melissa to her dancing competition. Something inside of me broke that day. I understood that my efforts would never be sufficient. I so gave up attempting to please people and began living for myself. After graduating with honors and receiving a full scholarship to Princeton, I was hired by Berkshire Financial. I was leading my own team in 5 years. I was elevated to the position of financial director 3 years ago, and I didn't share any of it with them. My phone began ringing, and I was jarred from my recollections. Mom was back. I was hesitant to respond. Hi there. Next Saturday, we will have a family get-together. Everyone will be present. And your cousins Carol and Uncle Jim, we want you to join us. I scowled. What's the event? Just a family meeting, I see. We have a noteworthy announcement to make, she said in an intentionally ambiguous tone. I ought to have declined. My gut advised me to avoid it. However, my curiosity overcame me. All right. At what time? 4. Oh. Donna also made an effort to dress correctly. I hung up, looking like I usually showed up in tatters, fuming properly. On Saturday, I stood contemplating in my walk-in closet. At last, I decided on a basic black dress. Chanel. To the untrained eye, it appeared small, yet it cost more than Melissa's monthly wage. You wouldn't know, though, until you saw the delicate stitching and fabric quality. There were automobiles lining the driveway when I got to my parents' house. I recognized Uncle Jim's vehicle and Carol's automobile. I inhaled deeply before going inside. Carol and Donna yelled and drew me into an embrace. Years have passed. Look at you. You're so mature and reasonable. I made an effort to grin. Nice to see you as well. And Carol, I spent the next 15 minutes chit-chatting with relatives I could hardly recall, while my parents and Melissa sat in a corner, muttering to each other and looking at me every now and again. They were obviously thrilled about this announcement, whatever it was. At last, Mom summoned everyone to the dining table, which had been enlarged to seat the 15 or so family members in attendance. After we were all seated with our meal plates, she got up and used a spoon to tap her glass. There's a special reason we brought you all here today, she said with a smile. Melissa is going to share some amazing news. Melissa got to her feet, dramatically clearing her throat. 2 weeks ago, she said, her voice brimming with pride, I purchased my own Westridge Heights apartment. Applause broke out in the room. While not the most affluent neighborhood in town, Westridge Heights was undoubtedly one of the nicer ones. It's a beautiful 2-bedroom, Melissa added. The down payment was provided by parents. She blew them a kiss, of course, and they grinned broadly in return. The housewarming party is when Melissa was called out by cousin Brian. Yes, I still haven't made up my mind. Still working on making everything flawless. I took a sip of water and grinned to myself. Well done. It was a nice accomplishment, even if she needed our parents' help. Mom's voice was unusually loud as she abruptly turned to face me. Donna, you haven't congratulated your sister. All eyes turned to me. Melissa giggled. She's probably just jealous. Not everyone can afford property in this market. My parents exchanged knowing smiles. Then Mom, making sure everyone could hear, said, well, it'll be a long time before Donna can match this achievement. Property ownership is for those with real careers. The table fell silent. Everyone watching for my reaction. They expected embarrassment, perhaps tears or stammering excuses. Instead, I laughed, a genuine, spontaneous laugh. Actually, I said, I bought my place 2 years ago. Melissa's smile faltered. A condo, you mean, or a townhouse? I took another bite of food, chewing slowly, making them wait. No, it's an apartment. 4 bedrooms. Corner unit with a wraparound terrace in Lakeside Tower. Gasps around the table. Lakeside Tower was the most exclusive address in the city. That's impossible, Melissa sputtered. You're a middle manager. You couldn't afford a broom closet in Lakeside. I dabbed my lips with a napkin. I've been financial director at Berkshire for 3 years now. My salary and bonuses are comfortable. The shock on their faces was priceless. Dad's work clattered onto his plate. Financial director, he repeated. Why didn't you tell us? I met his gaze evenly. None of you ever asked. A heavy silence fell over the table. Then Mom's expression suddenly softened. Darling, that's wonderful news. When are you having your housewarming? We'd love to see this apartment. I had my housewarming 2 years ago, I replied calmly with friends. Mom's smile stiffened. Melissa's face had turned an interesting shade of red. The rest of my relatives were looking at me with newfound interest, as if seeing me for the first time. Uncle Jim raised his glass. Well, congratulations, Donna. That's quite an achievement. Others murmured agreement while my parents and Melissa sat in stunned silence as dinner continued. I noticed how everyone suddenly wanted to talk to me, ask about my job, my life. People who had barely acknowledged me for years were now hanging on my every word. I didn't stay long after my revelation. The atmosphere had become unbearable. My relatives suddenly fawning over me, Melissa sulking in the corner, and my parents switching between shock and an unsettling eagerness to reconnect. I made my excuses after dessert, citing an early morning meeting. But it's Sunday tomorrow. Mom protested, following me to the door. Global markets don't sleep, I replied, which wasn't entirely untrue. I did have a call with our Tokyo office, but not until the afternoon. The drive home was strangely liberating. For years, I'd hidden my success from them, partly out of spite, partly because their opinion had stopped mattering long ago. Now that the truth was out, I felt oddly light, but also wary. My apartment welcomed me with its familiar comfort. I kicked off my heels and collapsed onto my living room sofa, staring at the city lights through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The revelation at dinner replayed in my mind, and suddenly everything clicked. The random dinner invitation last week, today's family gathering. It all made sense. now. They'd wanted to showcase Melissa's achievement and, by contrast, highlight my supposed failures. They'd gathered the entire family to witness my humiliation. Instead, they'd ended up looking foolish. And now they were scrambling to adjust to this new reality, where I wasn't the family disappointment. I was still processing this when my phone began buzzing incessantly. First my father, then my mother, then Melissa. I silenced it and turned on a movie instead. Whatever they wanted to say could wait until morning. When I finally checked my phone the next day, I had 17 missed calls and numerous text messages. Most were variations of "call us immediately and we need to talk." I ignored them all and went about my Sunday routine: yoga, brunch with friends, and preparation for the upcoming work week. By evening, the messages had taken on a more urgent tone. Finally, a lengthy text from Mom appeared. "We need to speak with you. Your father and I have given this a lot of thought. We've always supported Melissa financially because we thought you were struggling too much to ask for help. Now that we know you're doing so well, we believe as family we should all support each other. Melissa is having trouble with her mortgage payments as her successful sister. Surely you could help. Call us back immediately." I stared at the message in disbelief, then started laughing so hard I nearly dropped my phone. The audacity was breathtaking. After years of neglect and favoritism, after attempting to humiliate me in front of the entire family, they now expected me to bail out their golden child. I typed a response. "I'm not interested in discussing this. You tried to shame me yesterday, and now you're begging for my aid. Please don't contact me again regarding this topic." I could see the 3 dots coming and vanishing as Mom started and stopped typing many times. Finally, "You're being selfish, Donna. This is what family does. If you reject, you're choosing to exclude yourself from this family. Think carefully about this." I didn't bother answering. Instead, I poured myself a glass of wine. There was a peculiar air of finality to it, a chapter of my life finishing. It stung, but less than I imagined. The next morning at work, I buried myself in quarterly reports and budget meetings. Being finance director of a big corporation kept me busy enough to shove family strife to the back of my mind. By midweek, I'd virtually forgotten about the whole incident. Then my assistant buzzed my office. "2 people in reception are adamant about seeing you, Miss Williams. They're your parents, they say." My hand was hovering above the keyboard when I froze. "Inform them that I have a meeting. They promised to wait as long as it took." I let out a sigh and considered my alternatives. "Send them in once I've had 5 minutes." I hurriedly fixed my suit jacket and cleaned my desk. As my parents entered my corner office with its expansive views, their faces were a combination of artistic and determined looks. Dad said, "Nice place," his gaze resting on the honors and certifications on my credenza. "Thank you. How may I help you?" I spoke in a professional manner, as though they were just another unexpected guest. Mom came forward. "Donna, we must talk about Melissa's predicament. She finds it difficult to make her mortgage payments, along with your financial achievements." "I am aware," I forcefully interrupted. "Melissa's mortgage is not being paid by me." Dad's cheeks flushed. "Listen up, young woman. Family is helpful. Family. I always have, as has your mother. What is always the case?" Quietly, I asked. "Always supported me. Always gave me equal support. Showed up for all of my significant events." They looked at one another uncomfortably. "That's not the same. Melissa required extra care according to Mom. She had greater sensitivity. She now requires additional funds. I'm family again all of a sudden." I gave a head shake. "When you skipped my high school graduation, you didn't think of me as family. Not to mention the dozen birthdays and holidays I spent by myself, or my college commencement. You're acting absurdly. Dad lost his temper. Your folks are where? In a biological sense?" "Yes, but years ago you ceased to behave like parents." I stood to indicate that our meeting was over. I need to get to work. Mom's face grew stern. "You will regret it if you abandon us now. In the end, family is all you have. You have never been more like family to me than my pals." I hit the intercom button. "Nancy, show my guests around." Dad turned back as they walked away. "Donna, you're making a grave error. It's not over yet." I reclined in my chair as the door shut behind them, feelings whirling. A stronger part of me felt glad, as though I had finally gotten rid of something harmful from my life, while another part of me wanted to cry. Over the following several weeks, I pushed myself into my work. working longer hours and taking on more tasks. My coworkers were sufficiently professional to detect any difference in my conduct. Not to bring it up, I turned down offers to weekend breakfasts and after-work cocktails because I preferred the privacy of my flat or the diversion of lengthy runs along the river. Then my phone called with an unknown number over a month after the altercation at work. "Hi there." I gave a cautious response. "Donna, it's out?" "Carol." Though we had never been close, Carol had always been the least critical of my family, so I felt a little more at ease. "Hello, Carol, how are you?" she replied, her voice down as though she was worried about being overheard. "I thought you should know what's happening. Everyone is hearing from your parents that you're a horrible person. They're arguing that despite your wealth, you won't aid your sister. They are currently having trouble paying her mortgage." I gave a dry laugh, I'll guess. "Dad works the weekends, and Mom has taken on extra work." "That's right. How did you find out?" "Because they want that story to be told." While the self-centered, rich parent declines to assist, the poor, industrious parents give up all for their suffering daughter. Carol paused. "Is it accurate to say that you aren't assisting them?" "Indeed. It's accurate. My sister's mortgage is not something I'm paying. May I inquire why?" With the groan, I paced my living room. "Carol, do you recall when I graduated from high school?" "Naturally. The valedictorian was you. You gave a beautiful speech. There were no parents present. Instead, they attended Melissa's dance recital. They also did not attend my college graduation. They were my second when I received my first promotion. It wasn't until that dinner that I informed them that I had been appointed financial director. They have been treating me as if I were invisible for years, except if they were looking for something to contrast Melissa with. I hesitated, my throat constricted, and all of a sudden, they are only interested in my life because they believe I can help them with their issues. There was a pause in the line. Carol finally admitted that I was unaware of the severity of Melissa's increased attention. "I simply believe that you ought to be aware of their words. I appreciate the heads up. Thank you." I hung up and wandered to my balcony to gaze at the skyline of the city. Was I being uncaring? Perhaps. However, I had learned to defend myself from years of emotional neglect. Long ago, my parents had made their decision, consistently picking Melissa over me. They could now accept the repercussions. The following morning, I decided, I had been putting off a 3-week vacation to Europe for far too long. So I opened my laptop and made the reservation. Paris, Rome, Barcelona. I eat at fantastic restaurants, go to museums, and completely ignore family drama. My mother sent me a text as I was completing the reservations. "Yesterday, your sister lost her job. She is now undoubtedly unable to pay her mortgage. If you don't help, she'll lose her apartment. Is that what you want?" I stared at the message, shaking my head at the manipulation. I typed back, "What I want is for you all to handle your own problems like adults. I'm going on vacation for 3 weeks. Please don't contact me again." I blocked her number before she could respond, then did the same with my father's and Melissa's. It was severe but essential. I couldn't go forward if I kept being sucked back into their turmoil. The day before my travel, I had lunch with my best friend Tara. We'd met in college, and she'd been my support through every career milestone and personal crisis. "So you're truly cutting them off?" she inquired as we settled into our favorite cafe. "I already have," I answered, spreading my napkin on my lap. I banned their numbers, and I urged security at work not to let them in again. "Well," she swirled her iced drink thoughtfully, "are you cool with that? They're still your family, are they?" Though I gazed out the window. Family is meant to be there for you when you need them, encourage you, and care about your accomplishments. None of it has ever been done by them. I felt lighter than I have in years as I boarded my trip to Paris the next day. There was nobody in the seat next to me, a little extra on a lengthy journey. The flight attendants were just locking the doors as I got comfortable, opened my book, and got ready to take off. I received an email notice on my phone. The subject line said from Dad, but the address was unknown. After hesitating, I opened it. "Your juvenile conduct has disappointed your mother and myself, Donna. Refusing to talk about family issues and blocking our numbers. We didn't raise you like this. Melissa is having trouble. Additionally, you have an obligation to assist as her sister. In order to pay her mortgage this month, we had to take money out of our retirement funds. Is this the girl we brought up?" a self-centered lady who prioritizes lavish trips over the needs of her family. While you are gallivanting throughout Europe, consider what you are doing. I put my phone on airplane mode after deleting the email without replying. Before long, we were ascending above the clouds as the engines roared to life. Underneath me, the metropolis shrank and shrank until it was but a dot, then nothing at all. I spent 3 weeks immersed in culture, history, and the arts. I ate gelato by the Trevi Fountain, strolled around Paris at daybreak, and watched the sunset from a beach near Barcelona. I didn't post any of the hundreds of pictures I took to social media, so my relatives could view them. I was alone in these moments. My final night, overseas, I came to a realization as I was seated at a tiny cafe in Rome. I had lost my anger. The pain persisted. A lifeless lake under my ribcage. However, the blazing animosity had subsided. Melissa and my parents had already made their decisions. I had also created mine. We were all dealing with the fallout. My flat seemed even more like a haven when I got home, rejuvenated and tanned. There was a pile of mail, bills, magazines, and a letter from Tara, who had traveled to Seattle for a conference, on my kitchen counter. Nothing from my relatives. I ordered takeout, unpacked, and sat down with a glass of wine on my balcony. I had freedom, emotionally as well as financially. It was my way forward, alone to make a decision, free from past hurts and expectations. I grinned as I lifted my glass to the starry sky. Cheers to the future. Story 3. As I arrived at my parents' place, I prepared myself in my mind for yet another family meal. I wasn't against meeting my family, but there was always that underlying tension that I couldn't quite get rid of, and they have been happening more often lately. I'm Jasmine, and I've made a respectable life for myself at the age of 32. At a mid-sized company, I handle software projects, and although my hours can be lengthy, I am paid well. I've always been self-reliant and career-focused, which occasionally feels like a crime in my family's eyes. I was making my way to the front entrance. The pandemonium within was immediately audible to me. The children of my sister Emma were yelling uncontrollably. Emma is 35 years old, married to Rick, and has 2 children, Lily, age 5, and Tyler, age 7. Don't get me wrong, these kids are adorable, but they're also crazy. As far as I can tell, Emma's philosophy of natural parenting is letting children do anything they want. Jazzy shrieked at Tyler as he ran down the corridor and almost knocked me over. I steadied myself and said, "Hey, buddy, slow down a little, perhaps." Emma came waving dismissively from the kitchen. She warned the children to be careful, but it was obvious from her tone that she didn't expect them to pay attention. "Hello, sister." I was going to reply until I saw how well-dressed she was. Emma had her hair done and was dressed in a navy blue party dress, perfect at our folks' place for a Sunday supper. It was strange. "You look good, though. What's the event?" I hugged her briefly and asked. She simply grinned enigmatically. "No cause." "Isn't it possible for a girl to dress up?" When I walked in, Rick was on the couch, hardly glancing up as he browsed through his phone. He whispered, "Hey, Jasmine." Mom wiped her hands on her apron as she hurried out of the kitchen. Her jitters appeared out of the ordinary. Dad was preoccupied as he arranged the table. He kissed me on the cheek and hurried back to set the silverware, saying, "Hello, sweetheart, just so." There was obviously a problem. My folks were acting strangely. Rick kept staring at Emma when they thought I wasn't looking, and Emma was dressed as though she was attending an awards ceremony. I took a seat at the table and observed the activity going on all around me. One could feel the tension in the air. Mom startled as if she had been surprised when she dropped a serving spoon. Dad cleared his throat repeatedly. Emma continued to straighten her outfit while examining her image in the wall-mounted ornamental mirror. Dinner was served at last. Mom's pot roast, complete with accompaniments. Despite being a family favorite, the lunch was oddly silent, and everyone's responses to my efforts at conversation were brief and preoccupied. Rick and Emma were exchanging knowing glances once more. Since the children were the only ones behaving normally, they were creating a mess and disobeying all orders to eat healthily. When dessert was done, Mom didn't even bother to move the store-bought cheesecake on one of her pretty dishes. Dad cleared his throat loudly all of a sudden. His voice louder than normal, he declared before anyone left. "I have a big announcement to share with your mom." Emma stood up and smoothed her clothing. Rick wrapped her in his arm. Ignorant, the children kept playing with their supper. "Will you grab the folder, Linda?" Dad asked Mom. Mom sprung to her feet and ran to the study. When she came back, she placed a manila folder on the table with care. My stomach grew constricted. What was happening? I looked at Emma, who was struggling to conceal her delight. It was obvious to her and Rick what was about to happen. Mom inhaled deeply and glanced around the table. "Last week, your father and I went to see our lawyer," she said. "We've been considering the future, and it's critical to have things organized at our age." Dad gave a serious nod. "A new will has been drafted by us." My heart rate increased. The elegant meal and everyone's odd conduct were explained by this. However, why did Emma and Rick appear to be aware of it beforehand? Mom went on, her voice quivering a little with what seemed like practiced passion. "We've made the decision to give Emma this house and everything in it." The remarks were like a kick to the stomach. Emma pretended to wipe away her tears while I sat there motionless. Her voice cracked as she continued, "Mom, Dad, I'm not sure what I did to merit this recognition. I was startled out of my daze by it. How could she have earned it? I was curious about that." "Yes," I replied, sounding harder than I meant to. "That's something I'd also like to know. What specifically did Emma do to merit all of this?" I waved in the direction of the home for which I had been making mortgage payments for the previous 3 years. The memories came flooding back with clarity. 3 years ago, my parents made a frantic phone call. Mom sobbed as she said their house will be taken by the bank. After Dad's knee surgery, they faced a mountain of medical expenses and were unable to pay their mortgage. They rejected my suggestion that they approach Emma for assistance right now. She needs to take care of her 2 kids. They stated she couldn't assist us. So I took the initiative. I postponed my intentions to purchase my own property. For the past 3 years, I have been covering their $2,400 monthly mortgage, utilities, and any unexpected costs that arose when their car broke down or the water heater needed to be replaced. Emma and her family have been frequent visitors here for a long time. Never once did you offer to assist out monetarily or even with basic chores like dishwashing following these family meals. Everything made obvious now. The odd conduct, Emma's attire, and the covert grins she and Rick share. They were aware of this news. They had been anticipating it. My parents' features flushed red with rage as they considered my query. With the exception of the background sound of Tyler and Lily continuing to play with their dessert, the dining room became quiet. "You dare!" At last, Mom spoke in a low, menacing voice. "Following everything that we have done for you." Dad hit the table with a smash. "Jasmine, you had a duty to assist us. Daughters act in this way. Furthermore, we are quite free to bequeath our property to anyone we like." Their response left me speechless. Required. Did they see the $2,400 I sent them every month that way? Not as a gesture of affection or sacrifice, but as a duty. "What do you know?" Emma interrupted, her artificial tears abruptly drying up. "Jasmine, I didn't think you would be so greedy. You're behaving like a swindler," with a worried expression that made me want to hurl my water in his face. Rick nodded next to her. "It's simple for you," Emma said, her tone brimming with piety. "You're not dating. You are a childless couple. What it's like to raise 2 children and invest every penny in their future is beyond your comprehension. There are those of us who have real obligations." I glanced at their expressions around the table. With unmasked rage, my parents were looking at me. Emma was grinning triumphantly, and she wasn't even attempting to conceal it. Rick appeared arrogant and was presumably already figuring out how much they might receive for the house if they sold it. That was it. The last straw. Without uttering a single word, I got up and left the table. I picked up my belongings from the guest room where I had left my jacket and handbag and made my way to the front door. I climbed into my vehicle and drove off. My knuckles became white as my hands tightened their grasp on the driving wheel. I had to stop after traveling around 5 kilometers. As the full impact of what had just transpired hit me, tears clouded my eyes. I just sat there crying after parking at the curb. I had been assisting them for 3 years. Due to my meticulous planning to ensure my parents were taken care of, I had to forgo 3 years of vacations, put off buying a home of my own, and decline drinks with coworkers after work. They viewed me as nothing more than an ATM during that entire period. I cried for what seemed like an hour, and then I got back on the road. But I had to stop again because the fury was making me tremble so much. I got the strongest tea they had and sat at a booth in the corner, trying to relax, this time at a 24-hour diner. It was almost late when I arrived to my flat. Despite my exhaustion, I was wired to sleep. In order to avoid seeing the precise amount I had been spending on my parents, I had been avoiding opening my laptop and logging into my banking app for the past 3 years. I made a spreadsheet and carefully recorded each payment as I looked through my transaction history. $86,400 was spent on the mortgage alone. Then there were the property taxes I had paid last year when they said they were short, the auto repairs, the new water heater, and the utility bills. I felt terrible when I saw the final total, $103,782. More than $100,000 donated to folks who lacked the grace to express gratitude was something I would never witness again. With a feeling of both loss and release, I gazed at the next planned payment, which was due in 2 weeks. I take that off. I banned their phone numbers after that. For the first time in years, I took a hot shower, got myself a cup of mint tea, and went to bed. I just worried about myself while I slept. There was beautiful silence for the following 2 weeks. Mom didn't call to beg me to pay for an unforeseen bill. Emma didn't email me to say how busy she was with the kids or to suggest that I should help Mom with anything. Simply silent. I immersed myself into my job, and I requested for 2 weeks off without thinking when my manager said she had trouble convincing people to take their vacation days. I was surprised when she consented right away. "Jasmine," she added, "you haven't taken more than a long weekend in 3 years. You're past due." I made travel plans to Florida that evening, a rental vehicle, a hotel on the beach, and nothing planned but to unwind. I was determined to make the most of my first genuine holiday in years. I was reviewing my packing list the day before my departure to make sure I hadn't missed anything. My phone began to buzz. When I looked at it, my mother's name appeared on the screen. After a week, not out of forgiveness but rather to find out if there was a real emergency, I unlocked her number. I choose to disregard it. She kept calling. Then Dad called. Next, Emma. Let's go back to Mom. It was unrelenting. What did I ultimately pick up after around 20 calls? Already regretting my choice, I lost my temper. The money is nowhere to be found. Mom yelled without even saying hi. The bank called to remind us that the mortgage payment was due yesterday. "Did you not send the money?" I was unable to resist. I chuckled. It was almost astonishing how bold it was. "Why is it so funny?" Mom insisted. "Jasmine, this is serious. The money must be sent immediately." "Let me clarify," I responded, continuing to laugh incredulously. "You expect me to continue paying for the home even if you give it to Emma in your will. Are you serious now?" "This is serious," she shouted. "The house can be lost. That is no longer an issue for me," I remarked, perplexed as to why I felt Emma now owned the house. "Let her pay for it then. How could you be so self-centered?" A cry emerged in Mom's voice. "Following everything that we have done for you. Jasmine, this is your family's responsibility." "No," I said, "it's not. I owe it to myself to stop allowing you to exploit me. The home goes to Emma. Emma is able to cover the mortgage. I'm finished." After hanging up, I switched off my phone entirely. I went to bed early after finishing my packing. At 7 a.m., I had my flight. And I didn't want my first day of vacation to be spent exhausted. I was happier than I had been in years when I boarded my trip to Florida the next morning. I was going to spend 2 wonderful weeks thinking just about the sun, the waves in the ocean, and the next book I should read. The sunlight in Florida was just what I needed. After checking into my hotel near the beach, I quickly changed into my bikini and threw my luggage on the bed. I had a fruity drink in my hand and my toes in the beach within an hour of arrival. However, my family wasn't prepared for me to be at peace. I ignored the calls and texts that kept buzzing on my phone. Some part of me wanted to hear what they had to say, but I should have blocked them. Like seeing a slow-motion automobile wreck, the bank phoned again. "Mom, that money is urgently needed." "Dad, your mom is really unhappy. Give us a call right now. How could you harm our parents like way, Emma? Their house will be taken away from them." Emma escalated when no one responded to her texts. "I have 2 kids. The mortgage is beyond my means. It must be paid. You are accountable for it." The couple on the beach terrace next to mine were startled when I burst out laughing at that last one. I made the decision to block them all once more and spend the next few days concentrating on my vacation. For 3 years, I lived the life I had been denying myself. I slept in as late as I wanted, ate at nice restaurants without checking the prices, went on a sunset cruise, and went swimming in the ocean. I didn't think twice about sharing the selfies I took at local landmarks and on the beach on social media. A huge error. The comments began to show up on my photos by the 4th day of my vacation. How can you be having fun, Mom, knowing that we're going to lose our house? So unkind. Emma, having no obligations while your family suffers must be pleasant. I hope you feel good about yourself. Rick, every night your sister sobs. Concerned about your parents? Enjoy your self-centered holiday, however. Something inside of me snapped, even though I should have removed the remarks and gone on. I uploaded a photo of myself with a stunning sunset in the background and said, "First vacation in 3 years," since I was sick of playing the bad guy in their tale. I paid my parents $2,000 and $400 a month for the years. At that point, chaos ensued. Family members I hadn't spoken to in a long time began to leave comments inquiring as to what was happening. What is this about you paying your parents' mortgage? My cousin Alicia sent me a private message, and it was something Linda had never said before. Anyone could get a response from me. I received a fresh notice on my phone. The family WhatsApp group has deleted me. I texted my cousin Alicia out of curiosity to find out what was going on in the group. I got screenshots from her. A lengthy note had been placed by my mother. In our hour of need, our daughter Jasmine has deserted us. She has abandoned us out of envy for her sister. Despite all we have done for her, including raising and supporting her, her harshness might cost us our house. Please offer up prayers for us at this trying time. It made my blood boil. When they were the ones who had taken advantage of me for years and then intended to give everything to Emma, they were playing the victim and painting me as the bad guy. I made the decision that it was time to reveal the truth. I went to my social media profile and wrote something that would be seen by all of my family members. I have to correct the record. My parents phoned me 3 years ago to let me know they were having financial difficulties and would have to give up their home. Since I took over, I have been covering their $2,400 monthly mortgage as well as other costs like electricity. I spent over $100,000 in all to keep them in their house. They said last month that my sister will inherit the house from them in their will. They informed me that, as their daughter, I had a duty to assist them when I questioned their choice. They now demand that I keep making payments on a home that will never belong to me. I will no longer be used as an ATM, even if I adore my parents. I've included screenshots of several of my mother's bank transfers throughout the years. There was no denying the evidence. The reaction was instantaneous. My post was inundated with encouraging responses from relatives. I didn't know. Your parents said Emma was providing them with financial support, Jasmine. This is ridiculous. You were exploited. Keep going, girl. Cutting them off was the correct thing to do. In the comments, Mom and Emma attempted to accuse me of lying about the money being a gift. No one was purchasing it, not for the mortgage especially. The proof had been seen by the family. I made the decision to really unplug after that dramatizing outburst. For the remainder of my trip, I switched off my phone, disabled my parents' and sisters' accounts, and unfollowed them on all social media sites. The rest of the days in Florida were quiet. I took a day vacation to the Everglades, went parasailing, read novels on the beach, and began to plan my future with an additional $2,400 every month. In fact, I could begin saving for a house of my own. I felt a sense of possibilities and thrill at the concept. When I took a plane back home after my holiday, I felt rejuvenated and focused. I was carrying in my stuff when I was stopped by the concierge in my apartment complex. Your parents stopped over yesterday to inquire about you, Miss Jasmine. They wanted to know if you had returned from your trip. They were attempting to ambush me at home because my heart sunk. Right now, I appreciate you informing me, Miguel. Please don't let them go if they return. I'd rather not see them. With empathy, he nodded. I get it. I'll also let the other concierge know, Miss Jasmine. For the first time in years, I threw myself into my job during the next few weeks. Every month, I was saving a substantial amount of money. I worked with a financial advisor to develop a strategy for saving money for a down payment on a house of my own. I estimated that I would have enough money for a small condo in a desirable area in a year. The feeling of liberation was euphoric. By joining a hiking club and accepting invites to happy hours with coworkers. I began interacting with people more. It was a nice life. My parents were waiting for me in the parking lot when I left my office building one evening, around 2 months after the family dinner disaster. Even though I felt sick to my stomach, I remained calm and went up to them. Mom had black bags beneath her eyes and appeared thinner. In some way, Dad looked older. He drooped his shoulders. "What are you looking for?" I asked, avoiding close contact. Mom came forward with beseeching eyes. "Please, Jasmine, we must speak." Mom moved forward, her hands clenched. "We made a mistake, Jasmine." She looked at her father as we were conversing. "We are prepared to alter the will. We can make it equitable. You and Emma should divide everything between you. All we need is your assistance paying the mortgage. Please." I couldn't resist laughing. It was quite clear. "Is that the reason you're here? Do you still want my money?" Dad insisted that it wasn't like that. We truly apologized. "Are you sad your ATM stopped operating, or are you just sorry?" Mom's face fell flat. "How come you're so icy? You were reared by us. After that, you took advantage of me for 3 years. Emma did nothing, but I paid your expenses. Then you made the decision to let her handle everything. The only reason you're here now is to get money." Mom's voice rose in despair as she stated, "We can't make the mortgage payments. Foreclosure is being threatened by the bank. Emma seems to be having trouble with that." I said icily, "She will get the home, correct? Let her solve it." "I'm powerless," Mom sobbed. "She must consider the children." I shook my head, not believing it. "What do you know? I no longer give a damn. Emma is 35 years old. Her children attend school. Nothing will stop her from trying to assist you." However, no. I interrupted her. "I'm finished. In the past 3 years, I've spent more than $100,000 in you. I could have utilized that money for my own future and my own house. Furthermore, you lacked the grace to express gratitude." When Mom burst into tears, a few of my coworkers who were heading to their cars turned to stare at her with interest. I was too familiar with this strategy now. The tears were only one more way to control them. "I'm hoping you and Emma can work things out," I remarked as I unlocked the door of my automobile. "Get 2 jobs, perhaps. When people are unable to pay their expenses, they do that. You are solely to blame for this." As I climbed into my car, Mom yelled, "If only you had continued to assist us." As I drove away, I closed the door and interrupted her. I noticed them standing in the parking lot, with Dad attempting to calm Mom down as she continued to rant. They vanished from my rearview mirror, and I was relieved. 6 months have passed since that altercation. As promised, I haven't paid them a dime since. My cousin Alicia, who continues to update me in spite of my parents' efforts to turn the family against me, says as much. To assist with the home payments, they both secured part-time work. Mom works 3 days a week as an administrative assistant at a dentist clinic, and Dad works the weekends at a hardware shop. Emma still doesn't provide them with financial support. She's too busy convincing everyone that I'm the bad guy in this tale, that I left my old folks behind because I was jealous. She continues to try even if the majority of the family no longer believes her. After stopping that cash drain, I'm doing better than ever. I've saved up around $20,000 for a down payment on a home of my own. I'll be ready to buy in another 6 months, according to my financial counselor, which is far earlier than I had anticipated. I've also resumed dating. It's good to go out to eat or see a movie without wondering about if the money should go to my parents instead, but nothing major yet. I signed up for a yoga class and a book club. I spent years depriving myself of small pleasures. I saw my sister at the grocery store last month. Eventually, it was inevitable in a community that size. Lily and Tyler, who have grown since I last saw them, were with her. When they first saw me, they rushed over with jazz and excitement. Lily hugged my legs and squealed. "Despite everything, we still miss you." I was unable to contain my smile. "I have also missed you, child." Emma stepped forward warily, her face reserved. "Children, come on, we're rushing." She stopped to glance at me as she drew them away. "You know, Mom and Dad are having a hard time. After doing those extra jobs, they're worn out." I slowly looked into her eyes. "That's difficult. You might be able to assist them." She became red. "I have kids to provide for." "So you say..." I looked at my shopping cart once more. "Farewell, Emma." After they departed, I had a peculiar sense of calm as I completed my shopping. I would have been wounded and enraged after that incident 6 months ago. I simply felt disengaged now, as if I were seeing the family drama of someone else. I had a glass of wine and sat on my balcony that evening, browsing through my laptop's real estate listings. Not far from work, a charming 2-bedroom condo just went up for sale. I remembered to give my realtor a call first thing in the morning. My cousin Alicia texted me, and my phone buzzed. "This Sunday, the family will eat supper at Grandma's. She wanted me to invite you in particular. Your parents and Emma won't be present." I returned the text with a smile. I would really want to attend. Learning that family isn't always what you want it to be has been a difficult road. Those who exploit your kindness are sometimes the ones who ought to love you the most. Although it was an unpleasant lesson, it was essential. I don't despise my sister or my parents. I've moved past the rage that overwhelmed me following that disastrous supper. I feel horrible for them now. I'm sorry they were unable to enjoy what they had. They regret losing a daughter who would have done anything for them if they had only been fair because of their avarice and partiality. However, I don't regret cutting them off. It turned out to be the healthiest choice I've ever made. I shut off my computer and gazed up at the night sky. I was appreciative of the clarity that distance brings. Instead of a daughter, my parents desired an ATM. Emma didn't want a sibling. She wanted a scapegoat. I also desired a family that appreciated me. Sometimes we find something better for ourselves when we let go of the things that are hurting us, but we can't always achieve what we want. I'll give you a call tomorrow regarding the condo. I'll eat supper with the family members who still show me respect next week, and I'll keep creating the life I desire every day, free from guilt and manipulation. That's worth more than any inheritance, it turns out.